up, cookies? Welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Carolyn Gray. Welcome to my channel. I talk about all things fashion in and around it, even beauty, like we're doing today. Some lifestyle. I take you around the city. I show you my life living in New York City as an adult entrepreneur and content creator. And we like to have a good old kiki and giggle. So today, I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know, I don't really think I've done a solid or proper get to know me or things about me. So I figured let's do my go-to summer makeup application regimen and talk about who am I? You watch me, or you like to watch me, or you're just getting here for the first time. So I'll tell you who I am, who I think I am, and who I be, and all the things as much as I can without boring you too much. So we're going to go through my summertime makeup mix as I go through these things. And the first step I do, considering I already washed my face for the day, I have my serums, I'm going to just refresh real quick with the Tower 28 Daily Rescue Facial Spray. That's a mouthful. So rebalance that pH. Earlier in the day, I did apply some of the By Ellie brow texture, based in UK. This brand, small business. She kind of blew up from TikTok, but this has like a stronghold on my brows. And then I'll take the Anastasia brush, spoolie, and like spatula situation, and I just comb through it, lay it down, let it sit for a second so it could really set. But born and raised, all right, I was born in Baltimore, but around the age of 1, I'm just going to let that settle. Around the age of 1, my mom and dad were still figuring out things financially and within their relationship, trying to figure out, you know, proper child care and stuff like that. And they had to make a really tough decision to actually have my aunt and my grandmother in Aruba, my mom's side of the family, help, you know, raise me, and, you know, so they can get their finances and the last bit of their degrees together for their work. So, you know, during the time I was in Baltimore, I did stay at my aunt, my mom's older sister's home with her kids. And then some things came about with the type of care I was receiving. You know, she would come, she would come and visit me on her breaks during work from the hospital. She's a respiratory therapist. And then she would see that I would be like in soiled clothing, and her and her sister just didn't see eye to eye with the whole situation. And, you know, my aunt was like, well, if you don't like it, then do something else about it. And my mom was like, I will. And my grandmother was like, bring her to Aruba. We'll take care of things while you and your husband, Ricky, get things settled and together. And a lot of Caribbean families do that. You know, a lot of their children do. This is Charlotte Tilbury, their brow cheat in the color dark brown. A lot of Caribbean families, or just families in general, you know, do depend on other members to help. You know, it takes a village, right? So when I went to Aruba, I was pretty young, but I did understand the concept of my mom not being with me, or, you know, not being able to stay. I did have some trouble adjusting at first, but right as, you know, time progressed, I did learn to speak the language there, which is Papiamento. And the funny thing is, I actually was not bilingual at all. It was my tongue. And even when my dad would come visit me, you know, they would take turns visiting me in Aruba to celebrate birthdays or just to see me in general. I did not speak English at all. So my father did not speak Papiamento, which is the Arubian dialect. He did not speak the language from there. He did not speak Dutch, none of it. And I knew who he was. I knew he was my father. And we would communicate through hand gestures. And I would show him, you know, what I wanted or wanted to do. I would never really leave his side whenever they visited me. And the interesting thing about me as a child growing there full time at the very beginning, I had this concept that my Aunt Lona and her husband, Uncle Frank, were my parents, and their 3 daughters were my sisters, Mariska, Crystal, and Joanne. I had this concept that they were my family unit and they were my parents. But when my parents were in town or on the phone, I would know those are my actual parents, but these are my stand-in parents, my godparents, and my sisters. So, you know, I always thought that was pretty interesting that I was able to turn it on and off. And I'm sure some of that stuff did have some trauma on me as far as like, you know, not really understanding the real reason why my parents had me there and not with them full time. When I would see planes fly by, but like, oh, that's mommy, she's coming to get me, you know, all types of stuff. And it did take me quite some time to forgive my mother when I was a teenager and letting her know, like, you know, I kind of feel like you don't like me, or you didn't really want me to begin with. Like, you brought me here. And she was like, she had to clarify, no, I did those things to make a better life for you in the state. So I did come back around the age of 4 or 5. I started preschool at a Catholic school in our neighborhood. And it did take me a little bit of time to relearn, to learn and understand English. It only took a couple of weeks and then I was good to go. And I actually lost the tongue completely. I don't speak Papiamento fluently anymore. I understand when it's spoken to me. You know, I would love to relearn it, but my mom's reasoning for not keeping that strong was because she didn't want me to have an accent and be Black in the States with an accent. She felt like she dealt with racism amongst people of color, amongst whites. She was just like, just make it easier. Just have a regular American accent from Maryland. Like, just, I don't even want you to deal with what I'm dealing with. I do think it was a little ignorant for her to do that, because I would have loved to have been multilingual, Papiamento, Spanish, Dutch, English. I would have loved that. This is the Milk Hydro Grip Primer. But she really was working from a place of fear and protection to ensure that I just had a smooth experience overall, unlike her initial introduction to the States. My mom is a Rubian by way of Dominica. Her parents are from Dominica. They are British, Filipino, African Filipino, and Dominican descent, my grandparents. And my father is Black, Native American. For quite some time, my grandmother, his mother, had informed him that his father was a Puerto Rican man. We went through some traumas that as a family to discover that was not true. And my grandmother was hiding some things because of shame or whatever, you know, her thought process is. You can't pass judgment. People make decisions for their own reasons. But we later found out by me asking her on her last day of chemo one time. I was just like, so you've made it. We're proud. We're beating the cancer. Who my daddy? So, you know, reluctantly sharing with me that she believed that his father was actually a Greek man who was a taxi driver and a bakery owner actually in Baltimore. And I said to her, if this story don't check out, I'm coming back for you, Rose. The story checked out, however. Oh, this is the Bobbi Brown color corrector in peach. And I just went over some of those spots there. I said, if it doesn't check out, Rose, I'm going to come back for you. We're going to talk about this again. And the story did check out, but my father did not want to really dive into any more. You know, he didn't want to reach out to the family. We found out that, you know, the man was a married man with several other children. I did see some images of them on Facebook, and they did look very similar. You know, there was a woman who would have been his half sister, I'm assuming, that did look like my dad. So I was like, yo, like, you Greek, boy, like, look at your face, and then look at that face, and like, you got that nose, like, you white, you know? So it's just like, hey, you know, but we didn't really tap into it. This is the Haus Labs Medium Neutral, their concealer. Love this stuff. Kind of just let it settle down and into the skin. But yeah, so that's like my family background, ethnicity, where I kind of grew up. And then obviously I grew up in Baltimore for most of my childhood, teenage years, and went to Catholic school. I went to the Shrine of the Sacred Heart in Mount Washington. I went to Towson Catholic in Towson, and then I attended FIT. And I moved here a month before I was turning 18 to study merchandising management at Fashion Institute of Technologies. I got in right away. I did early application process, and I always knew that I was supposed to be in New York from when I was small. I was like, you know I don't really belong in Aruba, But I don't think I even belong in Baltimore for real. And I do belong in New York. So why wasn't I born there, right? So, I always had these thoughts, but I've had friendships from, just to add into it, since I was 5. Like, I still have friends that I made when I was in preschool up until now, high school, I wish I spoke to some of my friends a lot more than we do, but at the end of the day, like, life be life, and we don't judge each other for it. And anytime we do reconnect, it's like no time has passed, or it's just like, let's just unload all the things that's been going on in life. So I'm just taking the Makeup by Mario double-ended brush to tap in. It looks a little aggressive on camera, but I'm lightly tapping in and smooshing the concealers and color corrector. But yeah, so I moved here a month ahead of just turning 18, and my father recalls when he dropped me off, he was so nervous about me moving to New York City. I had grew up in Baltimore County, went to Catholic schools my whole life, pretty sheltered, pretty spoon-fed. I was not one of those problematic kids. Like, I was just like, I remember, I'm not going to name names, but I remember one of my really close friends, you know who she is. There were a few times like her and her mom would not get along, and she would like run away to our house, or like, I know some of my friends like skip school sometimes. And I would always ask them like, why do you skip it? Like, you don't want to come to school? Like, I like school. I like seeing you guys. Like, I never understood the concept of skipping school or doing bad things to get me in trouble. So I would not be able to like hang out with my friends on the weekends. But I also was a homebody. Like, I didn't sneak out at night, or I had no, like, and I'm not judging anyone, but I just had no drive to do, like, I was like, I'm staying at home. I like being at home by myself. I am an only child, hypothetically speaking. I'm the only child between my mother and my father. However, my father has a son, my half brother. We do not have a relationship. That was a very tricky thing. I tried when I was in college. When I found out more about him, it seemed like we were going to develop something really strong. But the way that his mother and her mentality is set up, it was very limiting for us to develop our relationship. And then also my father, he wanted to provide for both of us, and he did. But I think that the relationship between his son's mother and him, it just took a turn for the worse, because, when people are ignorant, I'm just going to put it simple and plain. When people are ignorant or closed-minded, or they have their own demons that they're fighting through, it's hard to cultivate real relationships from that. And I think, I didn't really hear much from my brother when I first really got introduced to him, which was, again, when I was in college. But he was a high school student at that time. So you can kind of map that up, and other things come up for you, I'm sure, in that thought process. But my parents are still together. But when he was 18, that's when I actually met him for the first time, and child support had stopped. So the behavior that I saw from that interaction, the first time meeting him and my father's interaction, my mother telling him that, she will hold him down. She has no problem with children. He's welcome in her home, all those things. My mother really handled those situations really eloquently. My brother just did not seem like, to be honest, my cup of tea. You know how I'm like, you daddy's son? Like, it is unfortunate that he did not have a lot of time with my father's side of the family. I think things would have been different had he had more time with us. As far as his communication skills, how he sees life, how he handles things. I'll tell you one thing. My brother, the first time he started really coming over to Baltimore and really getting involved with my father's side of the family, everything was fine. He's getting to know everybody. Everybody's excited that he's around. We miss Christopher, all the stuff. Lo and behold, one day I'm on the phone with my father. He gonna tell me that my little brother got my little cousin, who is a sweetheart. He don't mean no harm. Somehow they burglarized somebody's home or something. Like, they in jail. They went to jail. Something happened. I'm just like, now my cousin don't never get into no stuff. What you coming around here just call? So, hopefully my wish one day is that my brother can come to certain terms or understanding about life and relationships, and that we can start clean slate, and that nothing is coming from a ulterior motive perspective or using people perspective. I just hope that it feels clean. If ever the relationship comes back around, my door is always open, but I am also very guarded because of several interactions and things like that, and how he treats my father now. It's just very like, I need this, give me this, give me that. It's not really a building relationship as much as my father would have hoped. So yeah, I mean, listen, I moved here. I was 18. Oh God, I messed myself up. Hold on. And I was getting right to work. I did not waste time. When I got here, I wanted to work my first semester. My mom was like, you need to make sure that your grades are on point, and then I'll think about letting you work. Until then, I'm going to take care of you financially. You need to focus on your studies and getting used to being in college. And my high school was a college preparatory school, so it took me no time to realize, you know, my flow of things. This is Westman Artelier in the X.5 complexion. Love this stuff. Very lightweight. Kind of feels like I'm not wearing anything. The one thing I will say about this makeup is that it's so natural smelling. It has a smell to it that the first day I wore it, I was like, what is that smell? I was looking around like, what smells like, I don't know, shea butter or something, or some kind of oil. I just felt something was very earth smelling. And then I realized the whole day passed, it's my face that smells like that because of the Westman Atelier. So it smells very earthy, just so you know. But yeah, so as soon as I cleared myself and showed, hey mom, I can handle 21 credits and all the things, and my teacher said I need to really show my experience through my work experience. I need a job. My first job while in college, freshman year, second semester, was at Barney's, New York. I started off as a security girl. I was in the fitting room, a fitting room attendant for security. And then after some time, I stalked the director of the studio service club, where like all, you know, A-list celebrities and companies would come to pull clothes for events or their own personal shopping needs or for concerts and stuff. I remember some of my biggest memories from there was helping pull $1 million pull for Celine Dion's tour, Janet Jackson. I got really close to Janet Jackson's makeup artist at the time. She was such a sweetheart. I also helped the notorious P. Diddy and his crew. Shout out to Derek, really sweet guy, and Mike B. And then, yeah, I loved my time with Laura Mannix, the director of studio services there. And now she's at Bergdorf Goodman handling the studio service there. But there was a director at one point that I think he's now at Saks, but he was so rude about the fact that I was a college student and I didn't have a place to live during the month of December because my dorms were closed. And he was like, it's either you stay in New York and figure out a place to stay, or you lose your job. And I had originally had a setup where they understood I was leaving for the month of December to go home because my dorms were closed. And this man yelled at me and changed the script, made me cry. Little bald-headed looking man, looked like he missed the Monopoly, made me cry. And thankfully my friend Sade and her grandmother allowed me to stay there during those weeks. And then it was kind of like my time as an assistant had like a term. I wasn't necessarily let go, but I also wasn't kept. But I was like, okay, next thing. So I worked at Atrium, which a lot of people know. It was a store in Soho that had all the amazing things, all the new things. Khalees worked there once upon a time. So many greats has worked there. But Usher and Lala and all types of people that we know and love from the hip hop community, music community, actors would shop there and just get like the cool new things. Like one of the brands I remember they brought in, it's not so cool. I mean, it is cool. They brought in Canada Goose. It was them and Bloomingdale's that were the first introduction that New York had to that brand. And I'll never forget that. My first coat lasted like 10 years from getting it at cost because we had a good deal. But I worked at Atrium 3 full times. I got fired 3 full times, and I will never forget that experience. It was such a cool place to work at. Yeah, where else did I work? And throughout my college career, I worked at Nordstrom. I worked at Saks customer service. I worked at so many different brands because the intent was for me to just have all this work experience in the fashion industry to just continue garner my relationships and honestly to just build an understanding of what it means and what it takes to work in fashion. I remember overseeing the BRAG group at FIT. So that stands for Black Retail Action Group. It was it's an organization that's still around. They help students get scholarships, job placement, and obviously working with people of color, right? So I oversaw the chapter at FIT for a year as a president, and then I was a scholarship recipient, and then I also was an intern. Their famous internship program in the summertime really, I felt like, developed me so well on a professional level and on a personal level. And one of the, actually, what am I doing? Hold on now. Oh, I set my under eye with one size sweet honey powder. So one of the people that are most important to me from BRAG, there's a lot, okay? There's so many mentors that came out of that program, but JJ Thomas was like our dad and like militant leader, you know. He oversaw the interns that summer, and you know, he was the type of person to teach you if you're on time, you're late. If you're 10 minutes early, you're on time, you know. So timeliness and professionalism really came out of that experience with BRAG, as all those, you know, experiences I had as a scholarship recipient and all that other stuff, right? I even was able to create an internship opportunity for myself. So I knew I wanted to do the internship program when I got the scholarship. Elle Magazine sponsored my scholarship that one year. And before we went on stage to have them present, the CFO to present the scholarship to me on behalf of Elle Magazine or the publication company, I was backstage with him and Jill Ben Simone, famous photographer. And I was like, have you guys heard about the internship program? And they were like, no, tell us about this internship program. And I was like, oh, I told them all about it. And then a couple weeks later, JJ Thomas calls me. He's like, do you know that you actually created the opportunity for us to have Elle Magazine as an internship sponsor, and you're going to be their you're going to be their intern, and they're going to pay you. So I got to cultivate that relationship, I guess, and talk them into being a part of the actual internship program that summer. So I've always been proud of that I was able to, you know, connect the dots and network as a student, you know, not knowing what I would say would actually resonate with grown ass people that have been doing this for many, many years. And I was able to, you know, do that with BRAG, and for myself, it was such a great opportunity and experience. I'm going to go in with the Charlotte Tilbury Contour Wands in medium deep. Now, I like this because it doesn't have like such a stark contour application. It's very soft. It's, you know, it's bronzy, it's summery and stuff. But I just have to, I don't like pumping too much out the little thing. I don't know if I love this application style. But anyway, so yeah. And then coming out of college, I had been working at Saks Fifth Avenue, and one of the buyers who was also affiliated with BRAG, BRAG to me is like being in a sorority, like being a Delta, or AKA, you know, you meet these people and the relationships last, and they're always looking out for each other and, you know, for you. And one of the buyers from the program was like, oh, you should apply to the buyers program here at Saks Fifth Avenue. We're starting it up again. So coming right out of college, I had an opportunity to be in the buying office at Saks Fifth Avenue, which was great. And my buyer, who I was under, was a Black woman. And that was an experience that I loved and hated all at the same time, because I got to work with amazing European designers that like Alaya and Comme des Garçons, and also American designers like Donna Karan and Michael Kors and Marc Jacobs, all these different brands. I got to go to their showrooms and meet these people behind the brand that really make the structure happen and work. And, you know, I was able to I think Calvin Klein was one of my departments in store at the New York store, where we would do the buy and I would set it up in the actual store. So that I had a lot of great experience from start to end. However, working under a Black woman, I did think that I was going to have a much more supportive, happier experience, but it was all but the opposite. And it's, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, not all skin folk is kinfolk type of thing. And but what I will say is that she has such an amazing tenure at Saks, and she was well known throughout the entire industry. She was very well respected, but I do not think that she was the best person to mentor a person through that program. She was very short-sighted in my capabilities, and you know, everyone has different learning curves, and I feel like she felt like I didn't ask enough questions, and I also felt like she didn't ask enough questions about me to make sure I was understanding things, because to me, I came from a place where, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're new in the space, you be quiet, you soak up things, you ask questions here and there, you just do the job, and you just do your job as well and as best as you can, and you will get the flow of things. And I felt like she wanted me to be this superhero merchandising assistant out the gate. And I was just like, I'm very much still learning everything, and this program is cultivated in that way. And she was just like, I just feel like you don't ask enough questions, and like, you know, I don't think this is gonna work. And persuaded me to resign my position. That really affected me for like 2 to 3 years afterwards. And that was during the recession. I had trouble finding a job. I went back to Atrium, got fired from there again. But it's all love, right? I've had experiences. Atrium was the only place I actually got fired from where it was just like, this is a joke. Like, you just fired me because we had an argument about something, and you're just mad because I'm this college student that thinks she knows everything. I kind of went in with some ego from time to time, and it didn't always go over well, but I still love my Atrium fam. And then I don't really remember what happened in between all of that after college, resigning from Saks buying and, you know, looking for work. I had interviewed so much. And then somewhere along the lines, you know, I was living in New York. I was trying to find a good place to stay. Me and my cousin had arrangements to live with each other, and then some family drama happened. And, you know, when people don't talk and get clarity, things happen. And, you know, I was on my way to get us a new, cool apartment for us to live in. And, you know, miscommunications or things not said led to her going ghost on me, and I didn't have a place to live for a month. And I always feel like you're not a true New Yorker unless you're like a little bit homeless at least once. You know, like you have to go through, oh my God, I have nowhere to live type of experience to feel like you are a true New Yorker. And, you know, unfortunately, the family situation put me in that position. Thankfully, I had my uncle here who would allow me to stay at his house. But that was really uncomfortable too, because he was like, he's a bachelor. He's out in these streets, child. Like, he loves his best life. No shade. So I was just like, some days I would stay there. Some days I would try to finagle and like sleep in my ex-boyfriend's grandmother's house, and she had no idea that I existed. That was a whole thing. He was a Bengali Muslim guy. I was not acceptable. It was a lot, y'all. It was a lot. We'll talk about those relationships another time. But it was a really character building experience. And, you know, I survived that. And it took a while for my cousin and I to speak again, because I was just like, I didn't even know if I did anything for her to just go ghost like that. And then when we finally came to terms and like spoke about things, it really could have been so avoided. And, you know, family trauma and drama, all the things, we work through it. But I do think, you know, people like my mom always kind of like, you know, my child was homeless. Like, y'all could have just talked about this, but my child was out here, and like, y'all, we could have had this situated. This didn't have to happen. But anyway, after all that, I finally got a job, and I was working at Helmut Lang. And I also started to work out a lot, and I was so unhappy there. I had such a nasty manager. Okay. Oh, I use the Givenchy Prisme Libre. I actually found the color that really works for me. It's the Popeline Mimosa. It's like a pinkish light mix, but I really like how it sets on me. But yeah, so I had a terrible experience working there. Like, I loved my team at the store that I was co-managing, but oh my God, my director was horrible. And the thing is, she poached me. Like, she wanted me to work for her. And I think before that I was back at Saks. So like, I worked at Saks as customer service, then worked in shoes, went to the buying program when I graduated, resigned, was looking for work, went back to Saks, opened up the Max Mara weekend boutique, opened up the Sandra boutique, and then I went to Helmut Lang. So like, I have a great relationship with Saks, but like, I left there all on my own terms every single time, kind of. Not the resignation that my buyer did, but whatever. So I'm at Helmut Lang, and that lady was just mean to everyone. As soon as I got on board, this is the Dior Rosy Glow in Cherry, very lightly with this Jones Road blush brush. I'm just gonna tap, tap, tap along there. And one day I remember telling her, like, yo, can you like calm down a little bit? Cause like your energy is really, it's making everyone anxious. You're throwing things physically around the store. She did not like that. Oh my God. It took her like 60 days to figure out a way to fire me, and she didn't do it correctly. But I knew something was coming. So I was like, you know what? Before these people try to fire me for something stupid, she said that I wasn't hitting my numbers the first time we talked. I was hitting the numbers. And I said, what's going to happen if I don't hit my numbers next month? She was like, you'll get a written warning. I'm like, okay, cool. The next month came, and her and the director of human resources and my co-manager were all waiting for me one day after 4th of July weekend, sitting ready for me early in the morning, talking about they got to let me go because I still didn't hit my numbers. And I said, do you have a printout out of these numbers that I didn't hit? And they didn't. I said, this is so unprofessional. You're just mad because I told you that your behavior was uncalled for. You make people uncomfortable, and you can't stand that a Black woman is telling you this. And the human resource director was an African woman. I said, girl, what are you doing siding with this woman? Like, you know, this whole firing process is totally wrong. And if I had money, I would sue y'all. But I didn't have money. But what I did have was several interviews in at Equinox. And I already had a job opportunity the morning that that firing happened, to manage the 43rd Street and 5th Avenue location. And that was my introduction to the fitness wellness world, because I knew I wasn't happy in fashion after all those experiences, and something just wasn't sitting well. And my trainer at the time was like, you're always happy when you're in the gym. Maybe you should like explore whatever that feeling is. And I said, you know what? Let me look into Equinox and managing and doing something with them. And I did really well in my interviews. I did really well at managing. I had more of a backbone. I learned how to really speak up for myself, because I did feel fashion silenced me in so many ways. There's so much mean girl energy, or just like overlooking because you're a woman of color and you don't have a certain family background that comes from, oh, we have a house in the hip. Like, I didn't have all that stuff, you know, but I had really good bones. My family's amazing and beautiful, even with all their craziness, you know? So it's just like, I still was proud to be in this space of just being me, but I didn't feel comfortable being in fashion. And I really prepped my wings at Equinox. And then I was working for another company I don't want to speak of, because we did have to settle out of court with agreement and payment because of how they treated me at the end. Basically, it's one of those situations where you hire someone who knows what they're doing, and it happens to be a Black woman, and she gets your business running up for you within a year or two, from literal bare bones of a space to fully running, conceptual, like everything done for you. And then you start realizing there's limitations to what you want to do to your business, because there's laws involved. And now this Black woman to remind you, you can't do that because that's not, it's against the law. We need a certification for this. We need to do this the right way. I started becoming this person, and they started to get tired of me having some level of authority, and I was let go. And I was like, well, you still owe me money for all these other memberships that I put on for you, mistreatment, all this stuff. And they had to pay me out of court. So I don't speak with their name, but it happened. And from there, you know, I realized too, that was 2019. I got let go of that position. And really, I started to learn about cannabis. And that's where the birth of Noir Bud CBD started, while I was at that facility managing and directing it. Some of the clients were using it. A lot of the trainers were talking about it, and it piqued my interest as a vice that people use to calm down or feel at one with themselves, right? And I started making product at home, and it just became this thing. And then what happened? 2020 came along, world shut down, Black businesses are boosted. I have a brand that helps soothe anxiety and pains and all this other stuff. So I had a great run during that time. And in the midst of me running this business out of our 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, me and Carlos, you know, I bought some product from Jones Road Beauty. This is Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheat. And I posted about it because I've always loved Bobbi Brown's work as an artist and her product company. And I was like, what's going on with Bobbi Brown? I haven't heard much about her. Come to find out, she started this new company. Bought some product, and I shared it with my like 3,000 friends on Instagram, tagged them, didn't think much about it, and they reached out to me. They wanted to gift me some more. And then I shared more content. And then one Sunday at lunch in the city with Carlos and his niece, I got a phone call. Bobbi Brown asking me or telling me she loves how I present online and would love to pay me and work with me to do content for her new brand, Jones Road. And that was my introduction to, oh my God, content creators get paid for this? Wait, what's a content creator? Wait, am I an influencer? That was when I was introduced to all of the possibilities and unknowns of this industry. 2021. And I've been here ever since. And, you know, I still, you know, I've had this business, Noir Bud, and I'm also doing this content. This was Summer Fridays, Lip Butter Balm. And I realized that because content took a boom and takeover over my life, you know, I've had a tough time getting back on or in love with my brand Noir Bud. And also it's because of content taking over, but also I had a really bad experience with a tax preparer in 2020 where, you know, I still owe thousands of dollars to the IRS. And it also come to find out, you know, my taxes weren't even done properly. My taxes were handled as if I was a brand that sells THC cannabis, where my brand can be handled just like a regular business because there's no THC in my product and it's legal to sell, and rules were applied to my taxes that year that really spun it out of control, and I have to amend them. That's coming up soon this year because it costs money to get those things fixed. But I resented my business after that, and it's taken me a long time to get on top, but I do know that I'm going to get back there and make it into the wellness business that I always felt like it deserved and has been, you know, with its 50% or more return client base, you know, that's pretty big. So, you know, I'm grateful for these experiences because everything bad and good that I've experienced as far as a professional, a student, a business owner, everything builds up to this beautiful space that I am the person that I am today, and still evolving into the woman that I want to be in the next phases after that. But yeah, that's some of my story. Oh, my favorite color is green, shades of green and shades of black. What else? I wrote down some other, y'all know I love writing my notes. I love people, but I'm also really careful and guarded at the same, like I'm an introvert and extrovert, and I'm actually terrified of people, but I love people at the same time. Does that make sense? I know it resonates with you. I know it does. Somebody say amen. And the funny thing is, like, I have really good discernment. Like when I feel something is off with someone and I try to ignore that, I always say, yeah, I said, I told you so. But I don't be listening to me sometimes because I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. But in the last few years, I've been really good about not putting myself through that. Oh, also I use Haus Labs bronzer to just kind of really set in the bronzer and that sculpting. What else did I use and didn't say anything about it? I'm sorry if I missed anything. And I'm going to go in with the Charlotte Tilbury highlighter. Just a little bit. But yeah, I know that I feel like my discernment comes from past life experience. Whether you're into that shit or not, hear me out. I just feel that I've been here before. There's certain things about New York that really feel super familiar, especially when I know I haven't been there before. Case in point, my name is Carolyn Gray. My father's favorite aunt, who taught him everything about music and the arts and just way of living, gave him a different perspective outside of the, you know, the neighborhoods that they grew up in Baltimore, was his Aunt Carolyn. So I'm named after his favorite aunt, and she lived in New York. She moved here from Baltimore, and she had developed lupus. And during that time, they didn't have a lot of cure or help with lupus. There's no cure for lupus, right? But even the medicines, everything was just pretty new and just trial and error at that point. And she developed blindness. And she ended up passing away, obviously. But, you know, she worked here and lived here in New York. She lived on Park Avenue in the city. She worked on Wall Street. She was an artist. She dated this young Jewish guy. I forget his name now. Oh man, I'm sorry. But a wonderful man that took care of her during her last days, right? And there are moments when I'm in this city, like I worked on Wall Street also. I know my way around Wall Street, which is a really weird mapped out area. I lived on Park Avenue as well, but in Brooklyn. I'm an artist. I paint, I draw, all the things. I'm a huge creative in many different ways. And I've never dated a Jewish man, but I've dated outside of my ethnicity many times and had no qualms about it, right? So I just feel like there's certain things that Carolyn must have experienced that I feel like when I'm in those spaces or places in New York, I feel like I'm reliving something. So I do feel like I'm a past life kind of person. Like, you know, I've been here before, maybe a couple times. I don't know, but I really do feel like Carolyn lives within me. My great aunt Carolyn lives within me. But yeah, that is me. Oh, Win Beauty mascara. Okay, let's just put that on there. I feel like all the brands, makeup brands that I've worked with or had their mascara, I love all of them. Like there's not a mascara that I don't really love. Otherwise I would have told you. But I mean, all of it works. You know, I do like the wand on this one because it gets into the little crevices when I want it to, and in the big crevices when I need it to. So I like the wand set up here. It's really nice. But sorry, I just, you know, there's certain points where you just gotta get real quiet when you're applying some stuff. This is a long video. Oh my God. I didn't expect for that to happen. I had wrote like 10 different statements here and I just went off the map. I know there's a lot of things that I probably skipped, but just the gist. Here are some things that I'm kind of terrified about. I'm terrified about what could happen in the next couple of months, being an American, but also within my move to a new apartment, my relationship with Carlos, you know, his mother's health and wellness, needing to spend more time with my parents and really wanting to spend time with them so much where I'm like, how do I manage this and not come across selfish or absent or pulling away from my relationships here in New York, because my parents still live in Baltimore. I'm terrified about my age and wanting to have children. I'm terrified about this country, but I'm also really excited for the flip of all those things. I'm excited for a new space to create in, a new neighborhood to learn about. I've never lived in the Bronx in my 18 years of living in New York. Never lived in the Bronx, but I'm excited to learn about it and give back to it. I'm excited for new levels of commitment within my relationship with Carlos, whether that means engagement or a different type of non-traditional. So I don't know what our thing is going to be, but I do feel like he is my best friend and partner, even though sometimes I'm like, you're not acting like my partner. You got to get on the game. Couple stuff, right? But I'm excited to see where our life takes us together. I'm excited to help his mom find her footing again once she moves back to New York with the family. I'm excited to see my parents more often and create memories and to uphold their legacy. And you're just smelling them more, God willing, you know, that I'm given that gift. I'm looking forward to breaking stereotypes about my age and becoming a mom and, you know, my training and working out right now, transforming my body. I want to be superhuman. I want to have new regimens in my health and wellness and work life. This synergy that, you know, we all strive for. We think it's balance, but it's not a synergy. I'm excited for feeling that synergy, and becoming the woman that I want to be and always just growing and forever evolving. And there's so many more layers to me, obviously, you know, some dark things that I'll share in a different video and why I do things a certain way. You know, I'll talk about that. I don't want to end on that note, but I do think it's important to shed light on that stuff because I know a lot of us relate in many ways that we don't even think is imaginable, but I'm really excited for this community. But yeah, I figured let me run down some things about myself and show why I know X, Y, and Z, and maybe trust my opinion or want to know my opinion or see how we relate and how we differ. I'm going to do the One Size On Till Dawn spray. I got the mini ones because they sold out of the big ones at Sephora and I had to order it a different way. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. What are some things that you would want me to know about y'all? Spill the chips, cookies. I want to know. I'm nosy. I shared my chips. Now share yours. Let me know what you think about my makeup process, because honestly, this is what I've been doing a lot lately. I feel that it's super light and easygoing. I don't feel like I have a lot of stuff on my face. When I do use a Westman Atelier, I do not put a lot of like moisturizers and lotions and all the things. I put on my serums, sunscreen, then this, just so you know. And we can also talk about skincare in another video, because I do feel like I've been doing really good with my skincare maintenance. She's having a good time because I don't want to wear a lot of makeup anyways. The summertime is too freaking hot, but this is what I do when I am facing the people and being out in these New York City streets, just gallivanting and doing the content creation things, you know what I'm saying? But thank you for sitting with me for so long. Oh my God, I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry, because I'm sharing my world, I guess. Yes? I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye, cookies.